Before we get into our main topic tonight, I have to issue out this trigger alert. And this trigger alert is going to be for whoever it applies to. So if the shoe fits, there you have it. The following is going to be my opinion based on the commentary and the interview made about Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder recently did an interview, and I'm going to give my thoughts on that. The reason why I have to give this trigger warning is because there are some dedicated fans out there who will undoubtedly come onto my videos, and the moment they hear something not so good, they will automatically deem it as hate. So I'm letting you know right now, I am going to be critiquing Zack Snyder's commentary. My critique is not coming from a place of hatred. I fully acknowledge that there are other people online that actually just dislike Zack Snyder. I'm not one of those people. I actually like Zack Snyder in certain things. So, I'm letting you know right now, and I'm also going to say this very slowly. Eman, no hate Zack Snyder. Me no hate Zack Snyder. Okay? My critiques on what he says might hurt you just a little bit. And if it does, I advise for you just to not watch past this moment. It's okay. We won't. It's fine. We're still cool. Okay? It's fine. But if you're going to get hurt, because I'm not going to be loving and lashing all over Zack Snyder, this might be the time for you to wash your hands, wash your butts, and I'll see y'all next week. Okay? All right, cool. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. All right? Because I care. I care about y'all. Now, let me tell y'all what Zack Snyder did. No, I'm just playing. Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder has been probably deemed as controversial to some degree. I would say he's very creative in his approach to certain films. Let me be very clear. There are a couple films that I absolutely adore from Zack Snyder. Dawn of the Dead. I think it's one of my favorite zombie movies, like, period. It is one of my favorite all-time zombie movies. 300, my gosh, 300 is excellent. Like, that's a movie you can rewatch over and over and over again. Okay. You don't think I was screaming out, "This is Sparta," for no random reason at all? Of course I was. Multiple times. Yes, I found somebody to kick. That's another story, though. So Zack Snyder, to me, is a very, very talented director. Even Army of the Dead. I enjoyed Army of the Dead too. I know some people didn't like it. Whatever. I liked it. I think Zack Snyder is incredibly talented, especially when it comes to his visual prowess. And what I did not know, because he had this interview with Joe Rogan, which, if you're interested, check it out. And one of the things that I liked learning about him in these interviews was that he was an artist. Like, that was his thing. Like, he went to school for art and stuff like that. And I thought that was actually pretty interesting to learn. And that probably explains a lot behind why he's so good visually when it comes to his films. Now, with that said, Zack Snyder also made, he was given the keys to the kingdom when it came to DC. And he was pretty much spearheading the DCEU. He was pretty much in charge of the vision and the direction of where they were going to go, right? At that time, he was DC's answer to Marvel's Joss Whedon and Avengers and how they were kind of taking off. All right. He gave us Man of Steel, which was it was good. There were a couple things I had issues with, but overall, the casting of Henry Cavill, solid. I liked it. Henry Cavill is a great Superman. Movie, like I said, might have came with some mixed reviews, but whatever. I liked it overall. And then came Batman v Superman. And in Batman v Superman, we had some challenges. Now, I'm going to exclude the studio interference. So we're going to take that out of the equation. The studio interference gave us the boo-boo theatrical version, which was trash. It was just trash. And then we got the infamous, well, not yet, but we got the extended Snyder cut. This is the pre-Snyder cut of Batman v Superman, the ultimate super edition, whatever you want to call it. And that was better, right? Granted, when you have trash and you just have a cohesive story, obviously that's better. It was better, right? Now, Batman v Superman still had its own issues. I'm not going to go into that because I already put up my trigger warning. But one of the positive things about Batman v Superman was Ben Affleck's Batman. His version of Batman was definitely more ruthless, was more aggressive, and it was definitely a part of Batman that we had never seen before. So in this interview, Zack Snyder was talking to Joe Rogan, and he was just kind of going back and forth about the comic book movies. And then, of course, Batman v Superman came up, and, Zack Snyder shared a couple thoughts. So I'm going to talk about some of the thoughts that he had about the reception he was getting as a director. And then I'm going to talk about his comments on Batman himself, right? Some of the more controversial stuff. So it says here Snyder read one article that referred to him as a love him or hate him filmmaker. And Snyder went on to say this during the interview. I have no issue with you not liking the movie. That's not the question. Who cares? The thing is, like, you would personalize, you'd hate me because of it. I don't understand that. Allow me to help. So, in other words, Zack Snyder is confused. He was befuddled. He was a bit dumbfounded as to how it is audiences or critics or whoever would watch his movies and start to not like him or maybe even love him, right? Because he's like, why can't you just look at the movie? Why just judge the movie? Sir, that's not the way it works. And I'll give you a perfect example, a counter example. Tyler Perry. There are people that watch Tyler Perry movies because they really like his movies. They like his style, they like his presentation, they like the wigs. I don't know. I'm not one of those people, but they like that. And then there are people that don't watch Tyler Perry movies because they don't like his style and they don't like the wigs and they don't like all those other things. So at some point, the art and the artist become one in the mind of the person. That's all. That's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just what it is. If I get to know your style, it's just like with Tarantino. I know that I like Tarantino's style. I like his delivery. I like what he does with his movies. I'm a Tarantino fan. Every one of his films have a very distinct style and almost accent where you're like, yeah, Tarantino did this. And that's fine. Some people don't like it. Some people don't like the heavy dialogue that he does. And some people, don't like all the cursing and the N-word bombs and stuff like that. And that's fine too. So for Zack Snyder, he has to kind of understand his movies have a certain vibe to them. This is one of the reasons why his following is so passionate, because he connects with them in a certain way. And I'm sorry, if you connect to people one way, you don't think that the polar opposite might happen as well? There are some people that just kind of get turned off by the things that he does. Now, we'll get a little bit deeper into that, but I did want to kind of, he's not going to watch this, but for the people that do watch it that are kind of like confused just like him, that's why we associate the art with the artist. That happens. But he goes on here, and I think that this kind of illustrates a little bit more into Zack Snyder's mindset. He goes on here to talk about comic book fandom, and now he's switched to the conversation about Batman, right? And how he talked about how the studios were giving him a hard time with the rating of Batman v Superman, all because they just didn't like the idea of Batman fighting Superman. He's like, but the movie is Batman v Superman. Like, what do you think it's gonna be? Like, they're gonna fight, So that again, it's an interesting interview. So definitely check that out. But he's going to talk about the reaction of fandom whenever he goes into his approach to certain comic book characters and stories. Now, this has also been a critique of mine, but I want you to hear it from him, and then I'll share where I come in on this. So he says, for those guys, those passionate fans and stuff, it's not just a movie. And so, on some level, you have to acknowledge that this is their religion and they feel strongly about it. But hey, it's my religion too. Snyder said that he tends to get in trouble with comic book fans because I do take a deconstructive point of view because I care. I want to take superheroes apart. So he goes on here to say, people are always like, Batman can't kill. So Batman can't kill is canon. And I'm like, okay, well, the first thing I want to do when you say that is I want to see what happens. And they go, well, don't put him in the situation where he has to kill someone. I'm like, well, that's just like you're protecting your God in a weird way, right? You're making your God irrelevant. Okay. Let me go into this a little more. So he does expand on this a little bit, and then I'll point out something. He said that fans often don't want to see their hero in a no-win situation because we don't want to see him lose. But that's not story he wants to bring to the screen. Snyder isn't interested in a superhero who has to maintain this godlike status. All right. Couple of things. Zack Snyder is correct that when it comes to canon, the idea of certain characters, fans do get very protective of that, right? Now, this could be for a couple of different reasons. It could be because of legacy, it could be because maybe that's what people grew up with, or it could just be because it works, right? Like there's a certain appeal to a certain story that makes it canon, and we're okay with it because it ain't broke. But as you just heard him say, he likes to deconstruct these things. And yes, this is where he gets in trouble with his fans, with comic book fans. But this is where I have an issue with his approach, because it's more of an issue of him not understanding the position that he was in and the timing that he came in. There's nothing wrong with deconstructing a superhero or even canon. That's okay to do that. The comic books do that all the time. The problem that I think Zack Snyder, so even with Batman killing, Batman has killed. There are comics where Batman has killed people before. That's not new. But this is, and I'm gonna talk about Batman first. Let's go to Batman first. The problem is not that, oh, Zack Snyder, you're having him kill people and that's a problem. That's not the issue. It really isn't. My issue with Zack Snyder's deconstructive approach to Batman specifically is Batman already got trauma. Batman already has problems. Batman is already nuts. Batman don't need more trauma to explain his character. You already have a guy who dresses up as a bat and stalks people at night and beats up people in the face and then tells them to talk, all because of childhood trauma, all because he can't get over his parents' death. This guy walks around in the daytime as a playboy millionaire and walks around as a walking ninja bat at night. You don't have to give Batman more trauma, like killing people, or as he put it, a no-win situation. You don't have to do that. There's nothing, like, you already have enough to work with Batman. So that in itself, in my opinion, is Snyder doing the most when it was not necessary. Now, let's back that up. When he talks about having this deconstructionist type of mentality, he's right that, yes, fans get protective of canon. But this is where the comic books differ, right? The comic books, they will give you things where heroes do things outside the norm. Look at Injustice. The Injustice series is where Superman, the Joker kills Lois Lane, Superman goes nuts, and listen, Superman kills the Joker. Superman does a lot of bad stuff. There's a lot of killing in that, okay? But here's the difference. The reason why the Injustice storyline works, the reason why the video games are popular, the reason why the comic book was great and all of that, they weren't really canon. And what I mean by that is we knew that this was an Elseworlds alternate story. We knew that this wasn't our Superman. This was a what if type of Superman in a what if alternate world. What Zack Snyder doesn't realize is that he tries to bring those alternate Elseworld stories into main continuity. That's like playing with fire. The comic books barely do that, because what ends up happening is when the comic books take those Injustice Elseworld stories, that's the realm where you can play around with different things. You can experiment, you can try new things. And guess what? If it doesn't work, it's okay, because the canon is preserved. Nothing is going to happen to our Superman, because that crazy Injustice one, he over there. And here's the key difference. If something in that alternate world does work, and if it is successful, then you can conveniently include it into canon. Perfect example, Miles Morales. When Miles Morales came around, he wasn't canon. He wasn't the main Spider-Man. He was a Spider-Man from an alternate universe in a different reality. He was an experiment. They wanted to see, will people be all right with a black Spider-Man? Let's find out. And as he became more popular, as that momentum started to gain, they was like, you know what? If y'all cool with it, we gonna bring him into the main story. And now Miles is canon. So this is what I'm saying. Zack Snyder's approach to deconstruct stuff works great if it's not canon. And this is why this was a problem for him within the DCU. You have to think about what the DCU was and what they were trying to do at that time. Again, remember, they were trying to be a response to Marvel, who was coming out with Avengers and they were making $1 billion and all of that. Y'all didn't even have a canon established yet. You didn't even have a canon established. We didn't know what we knew Superman at that time, and he already was on shaky ground with what he had to do with Zod. People was already having issues with that. Then you bring in a brand new, different Batman that we knew nothing about, and then you have this other Batman subverting our expectations, doing a lot of wild stuff. Shout out to the warehouse scene. That was a great scene. But you're doing things that are outside of the canon, and you haven't even established the DCEU canon yet. In other words, people knew the Nolan Batman. We had time to marinate with that Nolan Batman. That was fine. It was cool. It was established. It fit within what we at least hoped for within that iteration of Batman. Zack Snyder came in with some Elseworld, alt-world type of stuff that main audiences were not accustomed to. I knew that he was drawn from Frank Miller's Dark Knight. I knew that as a comic reader. I know that. But that did not gel with main audiences that are like, ooh, we're getting a new cinematic franchise. We're getting a new Batman. Let's go. No, you can't be in that position of starting a cinematic new chapter or new franchise and kick it off with alternate stuff. That's not going to work. That's like James Gunn right now trying to start off the DCU and starting it off with Injustice. It wouldn't make sense. If he started off the DCU with Superman killing Joker and going on a rampage and killing folks and stuff, people would not be well receiving that. Now, comic fans, people that are aware of that, they'd be like, okay, we're in Injustice now. But if you're trying to start a fresh new cinematic series, you have to establish your canon first. Let me give you a better idea of what I'm talking about. If Marvel wanted to give you an evil Iron Man, they could do that now. If they wanted to give you a Tony Stark that was evil, corrupt, and all of that, they could do that now. Why? Because they already gave you 10 years of what normal Iron Man would be like. You already got your 10 years with a good Tony Stark, and you have that canon right there. But if an evil, Iron Man came around, you'd be like, oh, what's this new thing? You'd be a little more receptive to that. But you can't just kick off the MCU with an evil Iron Man. You'd be like, yo, what the heck is going on? Why is Iron Man? This ain't the Iron Man we know. Why is Tony what? What? So this is what Zack Snyder completely missed. This is what he doesn't understand. This is why I've always said best things for Zack Snyder to do are those off panel type of crazy alternate stories that are not canon, because no expectations will be attached. He can have the freedom to do whatever he wants, and nobody's expectations of what these stories should be will be violated. So his thoughts here on Batman were problematic because, sir, you had the obligation to start and give us a canon Batman, even if he was rougher, even if he was jacked, that's fine. But you already went and did too much too fast in a different direction that main casual audiences were not ready for. You have to set the foundation first before you start doing alternate stuff. Yes, Batman is a well-known entity, a good property. We get that. But still, people were going in thinking Batman, Superman, you got to give us the baseline first before you go off track. So anyway, that was Zack Snyder's approach with this whole thing with Batman. Personally, I think that his approach does not work if you're doing certain things that are canon. If he's doing something else, maybe. But you guys let me know. What did you think about his comments? Do you think that he was off with it? Maybe you think he was on point. Whatever you think, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. This was just a segment of one of my live chats, and if you're interested in joining in on the next one, be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications for more. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you all later.